Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and focusing in a little bit more in depth, and that is to discuss or understand, what is cold-heartedness or callousness in a female psychopath. Well, realize I would say a lot of this stems from the brain anomalies or abnormalities at the anatomical level in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, as science has shown in different studies, that creates sort of a propensity to disregard consequences and cause this type of individual to more focus on rewards. And this sets them up for a very sort of short-term sort of lifestyle, if you will. So they don't really have sort of long-range goals and things that they will work from and then learn. In other words, you don't see a lot of learning from mistakes and then resetting and apologies, things you might consider with like emotional warmth or nurturing. I would say if you've ever observed a psychopath, they don't really learn from when they've had a large fight. It might be something really life-changing or relationship-changing more so. Well, in other words, because of this, we're going to get a divorce. Because of this, we need to do this. Because of this, we need to change the business. And when you have these really all-out, oftentimes heated discussions, which have a lot of emotional or feeling connection, the psychopath might just sort of have a blank stare as if they're listening and then reply as if and telling you what you want to hear. But then maybe a very short time later, half an hour or the next day, just have not any emotional ruffle to them. In other words, wanting to engage in the same type of relationship. So there's a little bit of difference in the anatomical structures of the brain of a female psychopath, I would say, which would account for this callousness, sort of an insensitivity, and it's more driven by what you would consider a female aggression, which is, they talk about that in, I think, Kent Keel. He's a neuropsychologist at University of New Mexico, and he wrote a book called The Psychopath Whisperer, and he talks about evidence of these, different impairments in psychopaths, especially as they relate to the abnormalities of the brain, and then that they tend to focus on reward and not so much on the punishment. So, in other words, despite the consequences, they're more looking for expedience. What it is that they want. What do they want? And he designates basically that female psychopaths are more wanting like notoriety and power, and that their aggression isn't really usually that like a violence, but it's more, and I would say that's an interesting point, which is more like psychological aggression, where they might triangulate, where they might set up different splitting behaviors, where they're talking bad about you here in order to ally allies over here, and then vice versa. So to have these different, challenging camps simultaneously, so that they get, followers, or they get support over here, but then they undermine over here to get what they want. And whatever it is that they want can be a number of different things. So you have to realize it's considered like a goal-directed aggression. So usually they're not very violent. Their aggression is more in a disregard for others, a callous disregard for others, steel-faced, unemotional, unmoving, unwavering. I mean, they just don't seem to have the temperature, but they can mimic warmth. They can mimic, especially when it comes to societal, being social. They can really try to gather and have an excessive need for admiration and attention. So just like our viewers had stated, these are the people who want to suck up all the energy in the room. All eyes on them. All talk about them. Everything that has to be reacted towards them. And then if you're not, you're perceived as a provocation or frustration. So even though you're not provoking it, just because you're there and just because you are there, you're perceived as an obstacle. So you might find yourself an unwitting target just because of how you're perceived. So, and this is how they usually take advantage of people's vulnerabilities. So there's usually a weakness, a sensitivity, a soft spot. They can get you behind the knees. You're an easy catch. You're easy prey. These are interspecies predators. And they will oftentimes look so that, having a disregard for the consequences, which means I don't care if I get in trouble. I don't care if I have to apologize later. I'll do it now and apologize later. It's kind of their philosophy. So they just sort of will take on and take more than you would expect from people, from situations, from events. I mean, these are the people who walk away from an outing and you're like, why did you steal the ashtray or the glasses? Or why did you take this door handle? Or something strange that they might have taken, and it just seems very odd. And yet they will just do this. They will just have this sort of disregard. They just don't have an awareness. And sometimes you observe this, and it's very strange. So I thought this was very interesting too, because they talk about the female psychopath as oftentimes having an emotional intelligence, which means they're able to pick up on how people use emotional words, or what would be then feigned as emotional intelligence. But when you really study it, there are some different tenses that things are used that really, I would say, will give them away. They have really more of a boldness and a thicker skin than most females. But I would say one of the interesting concepts was that really of emotional aggression or mental aggression. In other words, the gossip, the ostracizing, the isolating. So this is, even though it doesn't seem quote unquote aggressive, you're not being punched in the stomach, you're not being punched in the arm, but this is considered emotionally aggressive behavior. So in other words, like an emotional violence, if you will. And oftentimes I think for men, they get caught so that they can't really respond to this. It becomes very difficult because this person has such a thick skin, and you can't really get through to these people. They're very, very bold and very unresistive and non-receptive to certain types of conversation. You will not get credit where credit is due. They won't see or value where you're coming from. You won't feel acknowledged and heard. This is just how it is. In fact, you can oftentimes feel, I would say, an energetic difference in the way this person feels. You can feel that they're just sort of vacuous, vapid, just sort of not really present, that they're not really there. They're just sort of always sort of moving, and you are not. This is, I think, the way a psychopath would describe themselves. It sounds very strange. It's like once again, a psychopath enigmatic sort of word salad where they'll say, like, I'm moving and you are not. But it's part of a conception that's showing their emptiness of emotional resonance, that they don't really key into, they don't have empathy. And so this is how it is displayed. This is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Have a beautiful day.